Hi, I'm Kristian. We're at Washington's Duckery, where we're going to go behind the scenes for an insight into how our ducks go from egg to adult. This is our incubator room, where we make sure that all of our eggs are nice and safe. Mummy ducks are very good at laying their eggs and sitting on them, keeping them nice and warm, but sometimes they don't always keep them safe. What we do is we remove our eggs to make sure they're nice and secure. When the eggs are set in our incubators, which is when mummy ducks finish laying them and is set on them, keeping them nice and warm and constant humidity and temperature, we do the same in our incubators. We keep them at 37.5 degrees centigrade and 45% humidity to make sure it's nice and constant in the incubators and that the eggs develop into nice healthy chicks. What I'm going to do now is check on the eggs to make sure that we can see how they're developing, and we do this through a method called candling. Before we even come into the incubator room, we need to make sure that our hands are thoroughly cleaned and washed so we don't pass on any germs to the eggs that are developing in our incubators. So I'm going to go into our incubator now to make sure that the eggs are nice and safe, and we don't want to move them around or shake them too much. We're going to turn the light out now so that we can candle, because when we candle the eggs we use a torch against the egg and we need to make sure that we can see inside, and we can't do that whilst the lights are on. So what I'm looking for when I candle the eggs, I'm looking for the air space at the top of the egg. That's where the chick is going to be hatching into, and the size of that shows us how long it's been developing. The bigger the air space, the older the chick inside and the closer it is to hatching out. I'm also looking for the webbing of the blood vessels around the egg to make sure there's lots and lots of oxygen being delivered to that healthy growing chick inside. When the eggs are externally pipping, which is when they're pushing through the shell, ready to hatch into lovely little chicks, we then move the eggs into our hatchers where it's running at a nice high humidity so that they stick to the shell and it keeps them nice and moist. Then they start to fluff up, where they're then ready to move on to our nice dry duckery units. This is our duckery, which is like a nursery but for ducklings. We move our ducklings in here once they've hatched. We first move them into a dry brooder where they stay nice and warm for 24 to 48 hours, feeding on the yolk that's still inside them. We put water out in a dish like this with pebbles inside, and that stops them from getting too wet and soggy, and it stops them knocking over the dish. The food that we give them is crumb, which is full of protein and carbohydrate to help them grow. We hand feed them so that they get used to human contact, and you'll see how important that is later on. When we first put the birds in here with water, we put them onto shallow water, because if we put them onto deep water straight away, they haven't got all of the waterproof feathers that they need. So we first put them on shallow water, then we raise the water level once they're used to that water and feeding and swimming. So we're in the outdoor nursery now, which we like to call the kindergarten area. This is where the ducks go once they're a bit older and they're ready to come outside in the sunshine. They really need that vitamin D to make sure that they're growing into strong, healthy young ducklings. Once they're outside, this is really good enrichment for them. There's lots more space, there's grass for them to forage around in, there's a nice deep pond as well for them to dabble around in and learn how to swim. When we first put them in, the pond is much shallower, and then we raise the level for them. We don't really want to throw them in at the deep end straight away. We also make sure there's mats on the ground there so it's nice and soft on their feet so they don't develop calluses and they don't damage their soft little webs and toes. We also give them a nice bit of shelter and a heat lamp as well to make sure they're nice and warm and dry when the weather gets a little bit too wet. So a really important part of our job is making sure our ducks feel nice and safe when they're around the public and when we're also working around with them as well. What we do is we do hand feeding to make sure they're used to being around us, just like we did in the indoor nursery. So once the ducklings have grown up and they're much bigger, they're now ready to go into our outdoor juvenile nursery. So the juvenile pen here, much larger, much more space for them, a bit more enriching, lovely big deep ponds where the ducks can splash around, molt through to their lovely new adult feathers, ready for when they go out into the big wide world, into their big exhibits, out on this site, another collection or another WWT centre. I hope you enjoyed going behind our duckery today at Washington Wetland Centre as much as I enjoy going behind the scenes and working in there every day. We can't do the vital work that we do at this centre and other centres, looking after our ducks, geese and swans within the collections and out on our reserves, without you guys coming to visit. By becoming a member, visiting, adopting our ducks, geese, swans our cranes, our flamingos, and our cheeky otters, we can't do the work that we do. So thank you very much for coming to visit, and we look forward to seeing you soon.